in the closing ceremony. So stay tuned till the end.
So our first expert of the day, Mr. Govil Rajpal, is from Checkpoint Software Technologies Limited. His area of expertise includes application delivery networks, network security, application and content security, and many more need of the R skills. We welcome you, sir, to the conclave, and we thank you for taking out your time for us. I request you to take over for your session.
Thank you so much, and let me share my screen. Do you see my screen? And can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, you're audible and
Yes,
the screen is visible.
Perfect. So, hello everyone. My name is Govil Rajpal, and first of all, thanks to all of you for giving us this opportunity. Right. So, my name is Govil Rajpal, and I represent 27-year-old cybersecurity company who have seen all major technological revolutions, starting from internet 27 years back, then to mobile, and now IoT, Internet of Things. Now, my entire session has two sections, right? So section one, I will explain what we have seen in last 1 decade, what problems we have seen in last 1 decade, and how we are solving these problems. And then second section of this presentation is what kind of new generation of attacks we are seeing and how we can address those problems to different organizations. And with this, I will end this session. Now, this one slide I have on Checkpoint what exactly we do, right? So when I say 27-year-old company in cybersecurity, this one slide sums up the innovation of Checkpoint. So today we process 4 billion requests, which is more than what Google does it. So every day we process 4 billion requests, and then we identify out of these 4 billion requests how many are the right requests and how many requests are the malicious ones initiated by different attackers and cyber criminals. Whereas in comparison to this, Google is processing around 3.5 billion requests. Now, from last couple of years, I have been trying to understand, right? So every day we see attacks are happening. So every day, every newspaper, you hear about these news, right? And then we have many technologies, controls, so that we can stop these bad guys coming to our organizations. But the real question is, who are these people, right? Who are these people trying to attack us, right? In last 2-3 years, I have done a lot of study on these different people. Who are the people behind different attacks? Who are the botnet masters? Who are the people who are the creator of phishing gangs? Right. So these are some of the people which I will explain in few minutes, right? What exactly these people do, right? What are their motives and how we can secure our organization from these people. So when you see this cyber world, so-called digital world, right? We have two different fights: fight for privacy and fight for security. So these are the two different battles we are fighting day in, day out. In many ways, we have already lost fight for privacy. Right? We are the first generation of people whose whole life can be monitored from beginning till end. Our locations can be tracked, our moves can be monitored. It is easy to figure out when some group of people are there in one single room. And thanks to the tracking devices we all carry with us, right? These tracking devices, mobile devices, share every bit of information about us to multiple parties. So data is new oil. You must have heard this saying before, and this is really true, right? There are many organizations who are after our data. And the best example we have in front of us is Google. So they are offering many services to us without any money, without any cost, right? Because they want to collect data about us. So if we have lost fight for privacy, have we also lost fight for security? We are struggling, right? We are one step behind the attackers, right? And there are valid reasons why we are one step behind, right, with these cyber criminals. And there are two reasons for this. Number one, attackers have access to our weapons, right? So when I say weapons, our controls, our technologies, which we use to keep them away. So they can download those controls, right? They can test those controls, and in the end, they will build a malware which can actually bypass these security controls. On the other hand, we do not have access to these weapons. We don't know what tool technologies they use to get into our organization. And the second reason is they always have luxury of time with them, right? So when I say luxury of time, they have days, they may take weeks, they may take months to get into any organization. But do we have this luxury from our side? Well, not. We do not have this luxury of time on our side. We need to find them immediately and we need to stop them immediately. So with these two problems, right, how exactly we should fight with these bad guys? What problems they have created for us in last 1 decade? The very useful and very important thing which we all can do is try to understand who these people are, right? What are their behaviors? What are their and what sort of tools they use? So let's meet Chris and Charlie, right? They both identified how a Jeep Cherokee can be compromised, how somebody can take remote control of a Jeep. They identified this vulnerability in 2015, 2016. They made their research public when this vulnerability was fixed by the vendor. So which means system worked. They identified there is a problem. They notified the problem to vendor and then company fixed the problem. And when everything was in place, they made their research public in Black Hat. And you won't believe, after they made their research public in Black Hat, they were hired by Uber. Within 2 weeks of their presentation, they both were hired by Uber. So question was why Uber is hiring world's best automobile security engineers, right? The result we have in front of us today, because Uber wanted to get rid of drivers. So these are the two brains behind driverless car technology, which Uber is coming up with. So clearly, these are the good guys, right? They are helping us. They are helping us, and they believe sometimes demo to a threat is required to spark a solution. And they don't break any law. On the other side, we have a group of people like who break law, right? Like group of anonymous. But they have a different motives, right? They have a different motives and they have larger motives. They are not trying to benefit themselves. Right? Their logic is they belong to political parties and they want to show their protest to political parties. So they are breaking laws by doing different types of denial of service attacks and by doing different types of defacements. But the largest amount of attack we see, right, based on my experience in last 13 years, the largest amount of attacks we see are coming from people like him. His name is Yevgenik. He hacked me around 4 or 5 years back, right? And he almost hacked 147 million people on this planet. So who is he and what exactly he did after hacking 147 million people on this planet? This person hacked LinkedIn back in 2012. He hacked 147 million people who were using LinkedIn back in 2012. So what exactly he did with 147 million user database? He was selling this data to his fellow hackers over dark web. So he had our data for 5 years and he was selling our data to different hackers to make money. 2017, he was on a vacation, right? He was stupid enough to leave Russia and went to Prague with his girlfriend on a vacation, and there he was caught by FBI. But how much money somebody can take, right, by selling a username and a password? Because that's what we have on our LinkedIn. So we did a quick search on Google, how exactly his behavior is, what exactly he does after he compromised a different organization. So here is he with Ferrari in Russia. Then we found a couple of other pictures of him on Instagram. So he had Mercedes, right? Then we found him with the picture of Aston Martin. He also had Rolex, and then he was also identified in one of the Instagram posts with the Rolls Royce as well. So this much money somebody can earn, right, So after compromising, after selling our data to different fellow hackers, to different organizations. The biggest surprise to me over my career is when government is doing hacking. So we have identified, we have seen when government is building malwares and government is deploying malwares against fellow countries. But their motives are different, at least different than cyber criminals, because cyber criminals are after money, whereas these government organizations are being run by military units, and they are not after money; they are after information. So they will try to get into your organization for days, right? If they can't break that organization in days, they will try for weeks, they will try for months, and they may even try for years to get into the organization. And if they can't get in at all, they may end up recruiting one employee in your organization for the data which they need. And this is really a hard problem to solve, right? We can build technologies to stop these guys coming in, but think about if somebody is joining an organization as their agent, as their spy, and that person is collecting all that information and sending this to the government. Another group which we are seeing, right, is building cyber offensive capabilities is ISIS. So I did a fair study to identify, to see what sort of cyber security capabilities ISIS is building in last couple of years. And all my study research stopped on this one guy, right? His name is Zunaid Hussain. He was born in Pakistan, moved to UK, and he did very first hacking when he was just 10 years old, right? Somebody hacked his online gaming account, and in the revenge, he started learning hacking. At the age of 15, he hacked Tony Blair's email account. And when it was identified he was behind Tony Blair email hack, he was sent to jail. Right? In 18, he moved from UK to Syria. And at the age of 21, he died. So we saw rise and fall of this one guy in just 10 years. And he's the very first hacker in the history who was killed by air drone strike. So we have different groups, like you saw. We have good hackers, those who want to help us. We have group of anonymous. Their motives are different, right? They are doing this for the purpose of protest. Then we saw cyber criminals. They are doing this to make money. Then fourth is we saw government. They are hacking us to get the information, critical information out of the organization, out of the country. And then we saw ISIS. They have a different motives altogether. They want to spread the terror. Yes, that's why they are building cyber offensive capabilities. Now, these are some of the tools used by one specific hacking group, right? So rather than focusing on from which IP traffic is coming in, because attackers can change that IP anytime, and all your research is failed. If you block specific domains and URLs, again, they can change such URLs and domain anytime. The major hit we can give to any group, to any hacker, is to understand what tools they use, right? They are also lazy. They are lazy like us. They cannot build tools from scratch. The moment you have identified the set of tools they use to get into those organizations, and rather than stopping those bad IP addresses, bad URLs, bad domains, if you start focusing, searching for these tools inside your organization, that is a great hit to the cyber criminals, to the attackers. So these are some of the tools created by just one group from North Korea. So there is a group called Lazarus. Now this group is from North Korea, and their major target is banks across the world. Right? They have hacked around 20 plus banks in last 5 to 6 years, and most of the time they use these set of tools. So if somebody is in a, for example, financial organization or in a bank, that SOC analyst, right, the person who is sitting in the SOC doing 24/7 monitoring of the entire infrastructure, they should have knowledge about these tools. The moment they see these tools are being used in my organization, they should be able to take that action. Now, these are the attacks which we saw. So how these attackers were attacking? Maybe they are sending malicious emails. They are trying to identify zero-day vulnerabilities. and then they are trying to send phishing emails. They are trying to get to the endpoints which user are trying to use. So we all have solutions to these problems. We have email security solution which can actually stop malicious emails coming into the organization. Right? Organizations may have web security solutions so that they can restrict users where they can go and download the stuff. They have solutions to secure the endpoints. So these sort of attacks which we have been seeing in last 10 years, right? And that's how the entire industry was developing controls technologies, how we can stop attacks coming via cloud, coming via email, coming via web, and to the user directly. But now suddenly from last few years, 2-3 years, we are seeing a different wave of attacks, right? This one attack example was a science fiction 10 years back, but this is now a reality. Somebody hacking organization, enterprise network, using a smart light. No one ever thought 10 years back somebody will be able to do this. We saw one news in 2019 or in the end of 2018, right? And that news was one casino in US was hacked. And the way that casino was hacked, there was a big aquarium in the casino, right? And they had the IoT sensors there. And this casino was monitoring the temperature of the water, health of the fish using these IoT sensors. Somebody hacked those IoT sensors. From there, they were able to reach to the corporate casino network, and then they end up taking 10 GB of data from that casino. It was a science fiction. Similarly, we saw Russian military attacked Ukraine army. And again, crazy idea. They hacked one mobile application infrastructure, and that mobile application was being used by the Ukraine army troop. And by compromising this mobile application, they were actually able to locate the GPS location of those soldiers. And then they attacked those soldiers. And other than this, we are seeing many ideas where IoT is being used, Internet of Things is being used. One of the idea I was seeing, there will be IoT enabled ice cubes in the future, right? So IoT enabled ice cubes. So people say this will change the entire pub and bar industry. So you will have drink, and that drink will have IoT enabled ice cube, and that will monitor the level of drink in the glass. The moment your drink is about to over, that IoT sensor will notify bartender, and then bartender can bring another new drink for you. So some headphones are coming, right? IoT enabled headphones. They will see whether you are happy, you are sad, you are excited. They will play the next song which you want to listen. So days have gone when we have been hearing there will be smart light, which is already there, smart switches, smart coffee maker, right? Smart curtains. One crazy idea came from Spain when they actually made IoT enabled mattress. So people, organizations are moving to IoT things. Anything which is smart is vulnerable, and there is a reason for this. Why everything smart is a vulnerable. So you can actually replace smart watch with vulnerable watch, smart coffee maker with the vulnerable coffee maker, smart washing machine with the vulnerable washing machine. And there are valid reasons, right? Now, other than these consumer-based products, like criminals are hacking cameras, they are hacking washing machines, they are hacking refrigerators, they are hacking coffee makers, curtains, smart bulbs, lights. Other than this, we are seeing attackers are using these IoT devices to get into the organizations. We saw in 2019, and this attack was detected by Microsoft. So one of the Russian hacking group was using IP phones and printers. They were on internet connected with default password. And why default password? Let's take an example. I brought one IP camera at my home. And I'm not a tech savvy guy, right? I'm trying to fix the problem. I'm trying to bring that camera up and running. And after, for example, spending a couple of hours, the moment I see camera is doing monitoring, I become happy. And then I actually forget, do I need to change the default password or not? Now that camera is on internet and we have actually not changed the default password there. And that is the reality. Most of these IoT devices are on internet with default passwords. And if they are on internet, not with default passwords, passwords are very weak. People can use credential stuffing like of attack, dictionary kind of attacks to log into these IoT devices. And then one of the largest bot attack we saw in last 3 years is Mirai bots. Mirai bot is you have your modems connected on internet. They have public IP address. Let's assume telnet is enabled because that was the first initial version of Mirai bot. So people can remotely log into the modems because most of the people do not ever change the default password of such modems. Once they have these modems, then they can create an army of these bots. And using the army of these bots, they can further launch DDoS attacks, and which we have seen in the past. So with this IP phone and printer, we saw some bash script was embedded inside these IP phones and printers, and this bash script was trying to connect to CNC server. You can see the IP address here. Right? This bash script was trying to connect to the CNC server controlled by attacker, and then from there they were actually trying to get into the organization, to machines, to servers, so that they can compromise the entire infrastructure. Similarly, we saw injection attacks, and wget, a very basic Linux command, which is being used to download the malicious payload on these IP phones, right, and other devices, and from there they can run these malicious code to the entire infrastructure. Why somebody will do a hack on building management system? So all smart cities, they have some sort of automated building management system. But what is the security for those building management systems? Not sure. So we saw vulnerability was identified on a system, on a software, which can actually do the control of these smart city, right? And if you have that control, you can take access of this entire building. Now, take this concept to entire city, right? You can switch on, switch off the light of entire city. And there was a very good research, 2018 and 2019, when we saw using smart bulbs, using smart lights, we can actually compromise the entire city. Malware can jump from one smart light to second to third and then to entire city. And that's how entire city can be compromised. So this was the vulnerability in building management system, which was identified right back in 2019. And Homeland Security also released an advisory for this vulnerability. If you are using this specific software to manage the building, the software needs to be upgraded. Otherwise, anybody can take remote access and then they can do further damage to entire building or maybe to the entire city. So they gave some recommendation how to upgrade this vulnerable version to the latest version, which is with the patch 2.4.5. They said all traffic coming on port number 22 should be closed. Right? Use SSL connection for encryption for data in motion, and then for sure, in case of IoT, use strong passwords. And then this research also says about IoT, 60% of the organizations have experienced security incident related to the IoT devices. Right? 70%, 74% feel their current security controls are not adequate for IoT, which means they have IoT, but they do not have proper controls to secure these IoT devices. Now consider these IoT devices as a new endpoint. The way we have been securing our mobile devices, our endpoints, our laptops, the similar way we have to think about the security of these devices, be it IP phone or be it IP camera. And then 90% of the organizations have reported that they have shadow IT devices inside their network. So when we say shadow IT devices, somebody brought in a camera and they have plugged in that camera inside the organization. And assume huge company with 50,000, 80,000 users, thousands of machines, servers, it is very difficult to identify whether there is any rogue or shadow IoT device connected to my network. And think about if that IoT device is not secure, it is running with the vulnerable version. So if one IoT device can be compromised, that can give the initial foothold to from an attacker to this organization. And now this initial foothold can be used to do the lateral movement in this entire organization. The problem is these IoT devices are very easy to access. That is the reason this focus has shifted. Rather than sending phishing emails, identifying zero-day vulnerabilities in web applications, the focus has shifted to these IoT devices. It is easy to identify. A very good platform we have on internet is Shodan. Right? It is the Google of devices connected on internet. The way you search for web URLs, HTTP, HTTPS URLs on Google. Similarly, you can search for IoT devices on Shodan, be it cameras, printers, coffee makers, MRI machines, anything which is connected on internet and exposed to internet. You can use this platform to search, and then you can launch n number of series of chain of attacks onto these devices to check whether these devices are actually secure devices, or you can make use of these devices to get into the organization. Then if you have a physical access, right, you are close to these devices, you can use USB, you can use wireless, you can use Bluetooth, and their proprietary protocol like Zigbee. Like using these protocols, you can start interaction with these devices. You can send data, you can retrieve data. If you have weak password, you can actually log into these devices remotely as well. So attackers are finding accessing these devices are very easy. And another truth about IoT devices is they are easy to hack and they are very hard to patch, right? And these are some of the facts. Like I said, I have been saying from last 10 minutes, most of the IoT devices are connected with default passwords. So if you have a dictionary, right, dictionary of few hundreds of password, you can use that dictionary to log into these IoT devices. If you have heard of Have I Been Pwned, right? This is one platform, and this platform gives you a dictionary of around 555 million passwords. You can download this dictionary and you can use this dictionary to log into different devices. And 90% cases you will get a success. Then there is no built-in security. These devices were never created. Operating system of these devices were never created to think, to keep in mind security, right? And then most of them are running a very lightweight traditional legacy operating system, which may be full of vulnerabilities which attacker can use to get into these devices. Another problem is these devices normally are unmanaged devices, right? You have tens of thousands of camera, for example, but there is no central management console from where you can get the entire view how these 10,000 cameras are operating. So these are unmanaged devices, right? When these devices are unmanaged and there is a new vulnerability, it becomes very difficult to patch these tens of thousands of cameras or IP phones or other IoT devices. There are no strict regulations and certification, right, for the vendors who are creating these IoT devices. So there are no guidelines from the government. So they are creating based on the use cases what they get from the market. And then there are operational limitation. What exactly we can achieve in terms of security, how we can manage operationally these IoT devices. And due to these problems, right, these devices have become easy to hack and hard to patch. So how we can secure these IoT devices, right? So there has to be an approach. If organizations are using IoT devices, what should be the ideal approach? How we can secure such devices from cyber criminals, right? So first thing is the way you have a perimeter firewall, right, to secure your infrastructure, to secure your endpoints. Similarly, you have a firewall here which can understand IoT traffic, right? Because traditionally, the firewalls which we deploy in any organization, they can understand the OSI layer protocols. They understand layer 3 traffic, layer 4 traffic. They can go up to layer 7 traffic to see what is there in the protocols, HTTP, DNS, Telnet, SSH. They have that intelligence. But do they have intelligence to understand the protocols which are proprietary or specific to IoT devices? Maybe not, right? So you need next generation of firewalls, and these firewalls should have intelligence for the traffic related to IoT devices. And you need to ensure, right, such malwares which are specific to IoT should be blocked at the perimeter layer of your organization. Then you should have a proper segmented zones, right? VLANs for servers. The way you have been creating these VLANs for servers, right, for endpoints. Similarly, you have a proper VLAN for IoT devices, which means if one IoT device gets compromised, this IoT device should not compromise rest of the machines, application server in your organization. So do a proper segmentation of IoT infrastructure in your environment. Another problem which I was discussing is it is very difficult sometimes to identify and classify IoT devices, because one organization may have different types of IoT devices, including IP phones, cameras, right, smart lights, smart switches, refrigerators in pantry. So you should have a solution which can actually do the automatic classification and give you a result, visibility, what sort of IoT devices are connected to my network. Then based on this classified IoT devices, you should be able to write the rules, access controls, right? What who can access these IoT devices, and IoT devices can access what all infrastructure in your environment. Similar to traditional firewall rules or router ACLs, where we used to specify IP addresses and port numbers. Here we can specify the type of devices, which camera can access which system, or which system can access which camera. All these access controls needs to be enabled. Then you can also enforce the policy through the internal and perimeter security gateways, which I have mentioned, so that any unauthorized access to the devices should be blocked. If someone does not have access to any specific IoT device, that access should be identified and that access should be blocked. And once, let's say, if we see some sort of malicious traffic, maybe the internal threat, insider threat, if we see some traffic is traversing through these security gateways to and fro IoT devices, such traffic needs to be identified and such traffic needs to be blocked. So this is one ideal approach, right? Someone can have if they are using IoT devices inside their organization. This is one slide, right, on Checkpoint, what exactly we do. And this is just one slide. And then I have a couple of more minutes before I wrap up this session. So with Checkpoint, we secure mobile devices, we secure endpoints, right? We secure cloud, and we secure network. Because if you see traditionally, these are the four ways how any attacker can get into the organization. They can compromise mobile devices, and from there they can get into the organization. So we do secure mobile devices. Then it is endpoint, right? So when we say endpoint, the definition of endpoint is not just limited to desktops and laptops. It is extended to IoT devices as well, because they are now new endpoints. So if attacker is trying to get into the organization through endpoints like desktop, laptops, and IoT devices, such attacks can be detected and blocked. Now, a lot of organizations, specifically around this COVID-19 pandemic, they are moving to cloud because they don't have resources who can go to the data center, right? Do all the cabling, rack mounting, then freeze entire architecture. We don't have that luxury now in last 2-3 months. So organizations are moving to cloud. And that's how attackers have also shifted their motive to cloud. So that's where we come in and we secure anything which is being deployed either in public cloud or private cloud. And then similarly, traditionally we have been securing network, so that still continues. So whatever problems we discussed, right? We discussed how attacker have been creating problems in last 1 decade, right? And then we saw how they have moved from traditional controls, right? From traditional way of attacking organizations to IoT enabled devices. We have problems, right? And we also have solution to these problems. So you have n number of security controls which you can use, right, to stop these attacks. But that is not the real problem in cybersecurity, right? I want to spend 5 more minutes, right, on what is the real problem we as an Indian, right, we as this entire community, we are facing with cybersecurity. So we have more bigger problems than these, right? These problems, what we have discussed, can be sorted using technology. But we have some other problems which can only be solved using the awareness. And that is my message for this entire session. Right? So this is one news, right, from 2014. Someone committed suicide because of a ransomware, right? We normally see about or hear about ransomware is my machine will be compromised, my data will be encrypted, and then I need to pay money to get my data back, right? This is the very general definition of a ransomware. Now think about this definition of data here, because this definition of data is different for everyone, for different organization. Somebody is hacking hospital because There we have our reports, right? Our medical history reports. If that data gets encrypted, we might not be able to get our reports. And that happened in one of the hospital in LA, US. Most of the Hollywood celebrities goes there, right? They that hospital has all the medical history of celebrities, ransomware gangs compromised, and infected machines where reports were there, because they knew if we will compromise this organization, which means we will get the money. We saw at the time of WannaCry, one guy in Poland committed suicide. He was scientist, he was researcher, and his entire lifetime research was there in one system. That system got compromised with the ransomware, and then he committed suicide because he was not able to get his data back. So this definition of data is getting changed, right? So here, this person identified with the message of this ransomware, he has accessed some inappropriate content on the internet, and if he doesn't pay, and this message seems to be coming from a police, right? And if he does not pay money, he will be sent to jail. He committed suicide along with his 4-year son because he did not have awareness what exactly he can do with this specific incident. So I started my discussion with a brief overview on why those two individuals' brains were hired by Uber because of the driverless car, right? So here we saw self-driving Uber car kills a person in US, in Arizona, right? We are becoming too much dependent on the technology. So this technology has good signs and technology has bad signs as well. Then cyberbullying, right? This cyberbullying is still a problem, right? We don't hear such news normally, but if you search for cyberbullying on internet, you will see so many cases, right, when kids are committing suicide because they are being bullied, right, on internet. And in one of the worst case, right, one of the worst case in India, we saw when your phone gets broken, right, your phone is not working. You go to some repair shop, mobile repair shop. You give your phones there, and what these people were doing is they were fixing your phones, and then they used to take photos out of these mobile devices, and then this gang was selling these photos over clean web, over dark web, and that's how they were making money. So specifically, New Delhi police identified registered 350 cases in 2019. So this is what they do when you give your phone to these guys, right, for the repair. Now these are the problems we have, right? And the only solution to these problem is awareness. You all, I think you all are the future of this country, right? Right. If you plan your career in cybersecurity, your job is not to secure systems, right? Your job is to secure the society, right? Your job is to bring the awareness, and this awareness can start from your family, from your nears and dears one. So my request is start bringing this awareness, right? Start from your family. Teach your parents, your mother, your father, your younger ones, how they need to be safe on internet, what they should use on the mobile devices and what they should not use on the mobile devices. Because most of the time we feel these mobile devices are secure, right? And sometimes especially these iOS users feels, right, because we are using iPhones, we are secure. 2019 was the year when around 8 to 10 vulnerabilities were identified in iOS devices. So no device is secure. So start bringing awareness, and that is the real message I have from this presentation. And thank you so much. Stay safe and trust no one, and especially on any device. That's all I have for this session. And forum is open for Q&A. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, sir. That was a great presentation. We sure have some questions from YouTube live stream, so I will read it out to you. First is Aslam Sharma. He asks, "Is Arogya Setu safe?" I think like he means to say with increasing government supervision and everything going on around us. So, is it safe to install these type of apps? And what is your take on it?
See, surveillance is there everywhere, right? So forget about the apps which are coming these days, right? Now think about the Google, think about the YouTube, think about Facebook. You just do a simple test, right? You three four guys sit together and you start discussing about a travel plan, and after a couple of hours you will start getting messages, right? Emails around different packages, tour and travel packages. Facebook will start posting these ads on your Facebook profile. So surveillance is already been going on, right? It is there with the help of other applications. So there is nothing we can do about this surveillance. And if you read about the news, specifically in Italy, so what they did is Italy police, they did a surveillance to identify the cyber criminals, right? So they did a tie-up with the marketing company, they identified an app, and then they published the app to multiple people. And it was not a mass surveillance, but they forced people to use these app. And through this app, they were actually trying to track their locations, they were trying to track their conversation. Another great example we have on surveillance is US election, how exactly Trump won the election. We have detailed documentary available on Netflix, and that will give you a fair idea how exactly and up to what level this surveillance is happening.
Yes, and like I think the least we can do is to select what information we give to these apps. Like it's under
Yes.
our control. Next, we have from Alkesh Gupta. He says instead of finding who the attackers are, we can look for the things that we expose to them and how it is attracting the attackers. This way, immunity can be developed before attacks being done in actual scenario. So I think
Yes.
again he wants to ask your
Right.
take on this.
So a very good question here. So we have such sort of technologies available, right, which can attract attackers, and such technologies are known as deception technologies. For example, you and these are next generation of honeypots. You can deploy such technologies inside your organization, and then you can wait, right, for an attacker to come to these technologies, to these resources. And these are not the valid resources, right? So no normal user will go and touch these resources. And the moment you see somebody is touching these resources in your organization, which means there is an alert, and then you can start tracking in. But the problem with this approach is you have already decided that we will allow attackers to come into the organization and then we will catch them. So that is the bad side of this approach.
Okay, so
So
last question from yeah.
sorry, go ahead. Yes.
Uh, okay, so last question from my side. Like as we discussed about IoT security, and we are really increasing the use of IoT devices for our benefit, and that's great. But we often neglect the like the security strategy we need to form before implementing those. Like recently, we heard a news about NASA being hacked because of a Raspberry Pi node that was open in the out. So, what would you suggest to the undergraduates, like to us students who are developing new university projects on IoT devices? We are working on Raspberries, Arduinos, and we are connecting them to internet. So, like, if we will ensure security structure in those, so I think that would be great to our project. So, we would like to uh, um, like have your view on this, like how we can make our project secure and what we should do to get this practice for industry.
So Saket, if you see the history of security, right, there are two use cases why every organization wants to invest, right, in security controls, right. Number one is either security is being implemented close to the users, right, because that's where the real information is. Attackers are trying to reach to these users so that they're investing money, right, to secure these users. And second, security needs to be implemented close to the application, right? If you think about network security or any other security, all these controls are being deployed so that we can secure the application, because that's another source of information which is there in any organization. And that's the reason attackers are trying to find zero-day attacks into the application, and from there they get into the organization. So these are the only two use cases. Now you can compare your use case, right, which is IoT. So when these applications were being built traditionally, so security was a second thought always, right? So now you discuss with any developer, and still in 2020 as well. The job of a developer is, I want to finish this project as soon as possible because I want to make this application live. And when this entire application is being created, built, and then in the end, all that vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, and other security stuff happens. And if there are problems identified, then cycle goes back to the initial stage. Again, requirement analysis, and then start finding what problems are there in the application code, and then fix it. But in today, in 2020, you see, we need to bring the features out as soon as possible, right? We need to bring down the go-to-market time of the applications. So we need to take an approach where security has to be integrated inside the entire application development flow. And this is something known as DevSecOps, right? So when we say DevSecOps, right? So when developer is writing a code, there has to be a way, there has to be a control which can actually scan the code in real time. Whatever he is doing at the time of writing a code, that code should be checked whether the developer is using right libraries or malicious libraries, whether developer is hard coding any IP address, domains, or URLs which can further lead to the CNC communication. Now applications are not being deployed on the physical hardware, right? Applications are being deployed on the microservices like Dockers, containers, Kubernetes, microservices, right? So when you use these target infrastructure to host your application, this target infrastructure has to be secured. So security has to be integrated in this entire DevOps flow. So when you are writing a code, then security has to be there. When you are testing a code, then security has to be there. When you are deploying this code to a staging environment, there has to be a security. And when you do a final go live of your application, then also security has to be there. And coming back to your question, Saket, for example, you are building some project on IoT, and to build that project, you need some third-party libraries. We normally don't check whether those libraries are right libraries or wrong libraries. The moment you include such libraries in your project, in your operating system, unknowingly, your product, your project, right, your IoT device becomes malicious. And this is something happened with CAM scanner application last year. CAM scanner application we all have been using. It was perfectly fine. We had one container, and inside that container, we all had our credit card numbers, debit card numbers, other information. One day, developer of CAM scanner used a library, right? It was a normal update of this application, but that library had a malicious content in it. And that day we saw an outbreak on internet. Anybody using CAM scanner on internet is not safe. Anybody can take data which is there in the CAM scanner application from your mobile devices. So unknowingly we use these third-party open source libraries and we make our project, our device, our software vulnerable. So this is something needs to be tested, Saket, before you make use of any such libraries.
Thank you very much. So that was really helpful, and I think it will help. So I will hand over to Mohit, sir. I think he has something to say. Then Ayushi can take over.
Okay.
Okay. So, hello, this is Mohit, Dr. Mohit Gupta from VIT Bhopal.
Hello, sir.
So, I have one question, not regarding this security, it's something about SEIM software. So, I know Checkpoint in terms of firewall and all, but is there any application of Checkpoint in this SIM based tool? Is Checkpoint has SIM tool? Yes, I wanted to know about this.
So, sir, there are two different set of SIM solutions in market. So really, we are not into this SIM platform, right? SIM technology. So when I say there are two different types of product, one SIM is which can collect every log from your entire organization, be it this log coming from network devices, security devices, application endpoints, IoT devices. So they have a intelligence to parse logs coming from any sort of devices, right? And the second set of SIM which we have created is for our products. For example, sir, we have around 10 to 12 different products in our portfolio, and we need consolidation of all these devices, all these logs into one single platform, so that we can bring the visibility what is happening on endpoint, mobile, network, and cloud. And that's where our SIM checkpoint created SIM comes in.
Okay. And one more question regarding students. So most of the time, the students who do development,
Mhm.
so what happens? They are not aware of what kind of changes are going on in cryptography and all. So they may not be able to implement right kind of security modules while development. So
Mhm.
how you deal with this issue? Are you getting what I'm saying? I'm saying, suppose you are using different key exchange algorithm. So,
Mhm.
so some kind of security parameters are there right now, or after
Mhm.
it may change. It may change very fast. So, how students should means students are not going to read research paper and latest update with the real time parameters. So, how they should uh, uh, think about this problem? Are you getting my?
Yes, yes, I got your question, but your voice was breaking a bit. So, for example, sir, such things, uh, it is very difficult to check manually. Very first thing. For example, if some student is writing a code, right, they must be using some sort of repo like GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket to manage their code. So there are, sir, so there are open source community based solutions, right, scanners, which they can integrate their repo with.
No, sorry. My question is something different. My question is the the cryptography part I'm asking. The cryptography part changes very fast in security. So suppose
Right, sir.
key agreement protocol is there or something is there you are using in your software development. So it changes very fast. So within 6 months it is going to have some attack. So some new patches will be there. You have to implement while writing codes and all. So
Mhm.
as a tester, I'm not asking. As a developer,
Mhm.
to implement security specific modules. So how students should keep themselves updated with the this cryptographic part, because it is challenging part, because it require reading a lot of real time research papers or stuff. What is, so suppose you are using uh, elliptic curve crypto in your
Right, sir.
key exchange. So what
Mhm.
kind of key bits you require, how many bits you require, it changes very fast. Or what kind of, suppose in key exchange recently noise framework came. So you have seen in WhatsApp and many new technologies are implementing this. So they have bugs and they are keep on updating these things. See what security parameter you should choose. So what happens when you try to implement that? You just take the parameter without bothering whether it is secure or not. So there lies the security bugs. When so this kind of problem we face in a student is, as a researcher we are updated, but as a student to go through all those resources is a big problem. And here the security hackers exploit the development these codes. So how you will suggest? Are you getting?
Right. Yes, sir. I got your question, but sir, honestly, I do not have answer to this question. So what I can do is I can speak to my backend R&D team, right? The developers who does create product day in and day out. What approach they follow, right? While doing this deployment. So I will take this question as action point, and I will get back to you on this, sir.
Okay. The problem is that students don't go for that much manuals and research papers. As a
Agree,
faculty,
sir. Got your point. Yes.
so student how they should approach this problem. This is what I am looking for.
Sure, sir. I'll get back to you on this, sir. How efficiently they can do something to identify whether the crypto, the ciphers they are using in their program, in their project is right or wrong.
Yes, yes. It is not right wrong. It is more about whether they
Yes.
are at this
Right.
point dated or not.
Right.
Okay, so it was your great talk. I have enjoyed your talk.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. So Saket, you can carry on.
Yeah, Ayush.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Our next expert is Mr. Rene Bernard, is the co-founder of Luxtag.io and the founding president of the Malaysian non-profit Access Blockchain Association. His daily focus is on blockchain technology and its adoption and integration. and the tech backgrounds, he became an enthusiast in Bitcoin and blockchain 6 years ago. Rene Sir regularly shares his insights at national and global events. He educates professionals and academia in Malaysia as part of the Blockchain Association's agenda. His for profit project is the tech startup called LuxTag. Started with two fellow co founders in 2017, it is now a highly valued startup business in the region, leveraging on blockchain technology elements. LuxTag is a holistic system to enhance customer engagement for brands and manufacturers. It tackles counterfeit and theft while creating big data insights on product distribution chains. Spriya, you're on mute.
Sorry. Today, Renish sir will share his thoughts on the dilemma of blockchain adoption in real-world industries. This is something many field experts prefer to stay silent about. Let's listen to him speaking up. A big welcome to you, sir, to the annual Cybersecurity Conclave CyVIT. I request you to kindly take over for your session soon.
We will be joined by Dr. Rene Sir very shortly, so I request you all to please stay tuned. Good evening, sir.
Hello, good evening. Yes, we are starting ahead of time. That's nice. Can you hear me
Yes,
well?
yes, sir. You're very much audible. We're live, sir, so you
Hmm.
can take over for the session, sir.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Okay. Yes, thank you for the introduction. I have heard that. I am actually on my second screen listening to this YouTube live. It's very nice that you are live broadcasting this and recording it. So thank you for the opportunity to participate again at CyVIT. Last year, I remember I was invited to talk about blockchain technology and introduce the thought of blockchain technology and how we use it for a business application over here in Malaysia. I would like today to talk about a bit of a controversial topic. I gave the title to this talk, The Dilemma of Blockchain Adoption in Real Industries. I think I had prepared slides for you. Can you present them into this YouTube stream?
Yes, sir. Wait a second. We are just let me share my screen. I will present it.
Yes, very good. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll wait until you got that one ready.
Okay. So I will be on mute, and you can carry on.
Very good. Okay, yes, thank you. Okay, so my name is Rene. I am calling in from Malaysia. Our friends from CyVIT did the very good job to include me into this talk to share some insights on my field of expertise, which is blockchain technology. I'm an enthusiast about this blockchain and crypto technology already for more than 5 years now. I'm the co-founder of a startup business here in Malaysia using this technology to create added value for its customers. But today I won't talk too much about that particular solution called LuxTag. If you want, you can visit the website luxtag.io and read about that later. It is one of many startup businesses or young enterprises trying to use blockchain technology to create added value for industries and businesses in the world. And as we went along in the past almost 3 years now, we gathered a lot of experience and complications, roadblocks, hurdles in this journey. And I would like to share some insights on these complications, which is usually a topic not so much talked about by other enthusiasts or experts. So let me start by mentioning that 2019 and 2020 were a hard year for people like me and for businesses like mine, blockchain-focused software development companies or solution providers. There is this company you might know about doing market research and consultancy called Gartner. They actually mentioned in 2019 and shared wisdom that blockchain will now only give limited benefits to overall systems of industries with limited blockchain implementations into systems, which is a contrast from the expectations of the 2015, 16, 17 build up towards the full-fledged blockchain solutions revolutionizing the world. And we had many enthusiasts like my past good self on stages sharing these dreams of a new trust model. And I have to say that the world is either not fully ready for full-fledged blockchain implementations, or we, the experts, are not fully ready to service the world yet. Maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle. I just want to add in, if there's any problem with the audio, you can't hear me well, let me know and I will repeat or adapt. May I ask to go to the second slide, please? Okay, yes. So I was invited as an expert, okay? On this picture here, you see an expert in the so-called movie The Specialist. Can I please have the next slide? Okay, so you all know the one back, please. So The Specialist, this is something what probably most of you in my audience today are looking at becoming a specialist, an expert, a very well-studied field expert in what you are learning. This can be cybersecurity, other fields in IT, or perhaps it is blockchain technology. And you would then know your field inside out. You study hard. However, it is very important that us experts don't lose the connection with the real world, because the world might not be understanding or ready for what we want to implement, sell, build. Can I have the next slide, please? So you might know this expression, a jack of all trades, but a master of none. This is somebody who has general knowledge in many fields, but lacks the very deep specialist knowledge in one field where he can even sell his services and become that expert. Next slide, please. But oftentimes it is better than a master of one. I want to go into this one wisdom here. It is not the very best to become a specialist in one field and that field only, and then ignore the world around. Whenever we want to implement, let's say even blockchain solutions, and that's where I'm in a moment linking to the crux, the point of my presentation. Whenever we want to implement and sell blockchain technology solutions to industries, to businesses, we need to not only know our stuff inside out, but we need to know their stuff. We need to know how businesses operate, what's the processes at the moment, and that then can be combined with the technological improvements. So this is the most important part, that there is the incompatibilities between the technology experts and the business world out there, and we need to bridge that gap. Can I have the next slide, please? So the first dilemma, because I want to talk about two dilemmas here. The first dilemma of the blockchain implementation in the real world industries would be this over-promising and under-delivering of experts, unfortunately to say, like even my past self, very enthusiastic about this new technology which can revolutionize the way how trust is established and credibility of data records. There is now the issue that clever people, and they are right, come out to ask us, so where are the implementations? What did you do? Where are the live businesses using your technology? I am not now talking about pilot project integrations, but where is this technology now really being used? Is it being used in banking? Well, not that much. Is it being used in other, I don't know, voting for governments? Not that much. Land registries was a very great idea to have a secure record, tamper-proof. Not that much. I think there is 2 countries, one using in a limited field and another one experimenting. So it's a very limited implementation at the moment. And now I want to talk a bit about why could that be? Why this first dilemma of the under-delivering? So I will go through these 5 points here. I have the time in mind, and I think I have time until 6 p.m., if I'm not mistaken. So I will spend around 5 minutes on this slide to talk about these 5 items. So the first point here, I wrote public and private. This is one problem because the blockchain technology, as it came about with Bitcoin and then other similar to Bitcoin projects, actually requires to live in the public world. In the public, where a large number of operators runs these independent servers, which we call nodes, in sync to operate and run the network as a whole. If we run blockchain powered database systems in a private environment, we deprive all this system of one of the main value propositions, which is the trustless operation, no central point of failure. Because once we implement private entities operating such a network, we have the problem that once that company stops paying their cloud hosting bill or gets into insolvency, they switch off, gone, data is gone. So where are all these promises of the blockchain people who then decided to guide companies to run private blockchain environments? There are ways around this, workarounds with hybrid solutions between public and private. However, the true benefits which we had been preaching about would probably only be seen in public networks, which then has implications to the light blue pillar here, the data privacy, data visibility. That's another factor. If we were to put data into public blockchains, let it be data or even only metadata, like data about data or hashes of data. Anyhow, data in the public would be visible. That's the idea of blockchain technologies in the public, to have it visible and auditable. But then in the real world, in businesses, we oftentimes, most times, don't have businesses saying, no problem, I am open source, open, trusted to the world, everything can be visible to everybody. No, businesses run their own business and need secrecy in many parts of their operations. That is why many of them choose private blockchain installations for their pilots or tests, and have a problem with the data privacy and in public chains. So another point here is the scalability, which links to the efficiency. Scalability and efficiency is something what is a problem in the blockchain world, because efficiency is needed when we want to store really large context, either of number of transactions per time interval or huge data sets. Scalability is definitely limited when our system doesn't run at optimum efficiency. So we would be running into problems when this intended redundancy of data, which is an idea, a part of the blockchain technology is intended redundancy, that every node in the network keeps a copy of the data in good sync, so that even that one node, if it went offline or was attacked, never mind, the network can continue to run because that node doesn't matter too much. But that reduces efficiency and that limits scalability. So there are many approaches happening right now to introduce scalability, which then cut the data sets into different mini chains, sub chains. In the world of Ethereum blockchain, it is called shards, SHARDS. So many ideas around that, but there is a problem. Further, now the one in the middle, the interoperability. We have a situation where people talk about blockchain. Let me put that onto the blockchain. But then there is a world of more than 100 different blockchain technology platforms, and they cannot talk to each other. There is no interoperability. Imagine the World Wide Web with websites where now your browser can guide you to all the world websites within one browser. But imagine that you want to open a website of Amazon and you need to use an Amazon web browser. You want to go to Nike and you need to use a Nike web browser. So how many web browsers do you want to install to do your web surfing? It is a problem that needs to be addressed. There are projects out there. One of the remarkable ones is called Polkadot, Polkadot. Projects are attempting to solve this problem, but it is out there, and we have competing blockchain technologies. So this interoperability will remain a complication for the time being. May I ask to move to the next slide first? Thank you. Okay, into this first dilemma falls a second category of the overpromising under-delivering. The problem here is that the blockchain technology implementations promise to the world the possibility of payments without middlemen, investments without brokers, loans without banks. You see what I wrote here? I can read it to you. Maybe I should because it's important. Insurance without an underwriter, escrows without agents, bettings without bookies, and record keeping without any accountants. This is something what is a very nice value proposition in theory. But imagine, what would the accountant say? What does the broker say? What do the banks say to this value proposition? I have a very good system for you. It's called blockchain. It makes you redundant. Wow, let's buy it. Let's install it. Great. Would they? Otherwise, these insurance systems, you need underwriters. It needs to be regulated. There is now a complication and a problem which we need to tackle. How can we make these theoretically beautiful systems work in an established world? And that is the dilemma we have here. Why am I calling it such, with such a maybe scary word? Because we have the problem that we are trying to sell technologies to people who inherently wouldn't want it because it probably makes them redundant. So this then brings us towards workarounds and solutions. I'm not saying that we are lost, but I want to point out the problems very clearly and call them by the name what it is. I will come to the workarounds and solutions towards the end of my sharing session. May I ask for the next slide, please? Okay, thank you. So looking at this one here, it is the second dilemma where we have these few catchy phrases like PII, for example, personally identifiable information. We have tamper-proofness, then the right to be forgotten. We have all these fancy words. I just put it into a word cloud here. Many fancy words which have an issue almost like a self-contradiction. It's a paradoxon. I hope that's the right term here, because we want to make data immutable, tamper-proof, keep them for eternity in such a ledger system. But then the world requires, in 2018, European Union put out this GDPR regulation, requires a right to be forgotten. If you want your data set not to be anymore with that one company, logistics company, bank, or whatever, you can ask them, please delete my data. And they are obliged to do so. Well, how can blockchain technology solve that? If we have tamper-proof, immutable, cannot change, cannot delete data. Further, other points. We have companies in a regulated environment required to have compliance officers, to have responsible persons. In the end, a director or a CEO would be responsible for what that company does or does not or does wrong. Then when you run a decentralized system, run by smart contracts, automatically executing and taking decisions. And where is the data stored? Oh, in multiple jurisdictions around the world. How do we solve the responsibility issues? Who takes responsibility for if anything goes wrong? And I'm not talking about the problem which, well, let me mention this one. It's not part of my talk now, but let me mention the AI dilemma on this. You know, when an AI, a self-driving car needs to make a decision, it cannot brake in time in front of a pedestrian crossing and needs to decide, do I run over the old person or the young person? The AI needs to make a decision, for example. Such dilemma decision by AI is to be made. Who takes responsibilities for such? The sensor manufacturer, the software manufacturer, the developer? Does your car greet you when you start the engine? Good morning, have a safe drive. Responsible for your drive is Mr. Michael, developer from California. So AI, different category, but already blockchain has a problem with smart contract and automated executions. Who is responsible and where is the data? So this is something where we have a contradiction for many of the use cases. And then when we want to use blockchain technology in these rather regulated environments, we need to comply with these complications, with these roadblocks. Yes, they make sense. These regulations make sense to protect people, but we need to comply. How do we comply? With a workaround. And the workaround for this thing is unfortunately, well, not the nicest workaround, because it renders some parts of the blockchain use at all a bit not useful. Please, can I have the next slide? Okay, so this workaround is to use databases. Now imagine if I ran a business and I put my customers' data onto blockchain databases to enhance trust against possible attacks from inside my organization. If it was that I don't trust my own admins, if it was that I want to protect from external hackers, many reasons why I would want to put certain transactional data on blockchain-powered systems. But now, if a customer called me up or wrote me a request, please, I don't want to be a customer anymore, and by the way, can you please remove my data? I have to comply. So how would I do that? The workaround is that I put a database in between. I put the customer data set, their name and phone number, into a database, a traditional database with a backup database in a normal data center. And I give that customer a customer ID. That ID number might then be in a blockchain database. So that ID does something, and that ID and their transactions would stay in that immutable blockchain database. However, once the customer requires to delete their data set, I can delete it in the database. I wouldn't even be allowed to only tag it as customer called us and now wants this to be invisible. No, the regulations say delete. So this deletion can happen, but not in a blockchain, only in the database. However, when I introduce such a workaround, the problem is that then we have a new central point of failure, the database, isn't it? So we need to maintain a database and a blockchain database. I'm saying purposely blockchain database, but because it is actually for maintaining data, transactional or states of data in that high security environment. And so what we see nowadays, it is I call it a dilemma. Maybe it's too extreme, but please consider these things. We have now a world where blockchain implementations use blockchains and databases alongside to service businesses, which I see as a problem. And that is why probably Gartner, as I mentioned earlier, explains this, that blockchain technologies nowadays can bring a limited added value, a limited benefit with limited implementations of blockchain technology. The full-fledged blockchain beauty comes out when we have pseudonymity systems. I wrote as a solution here, when we put states of data or transactional data with a pseudonymity, this means that you have, for example, a blockchain address. It can be a Bitcoin address, and you do not attach, purposely do not attach any name to that address. Then the transactions of this address are rather safe from all the complications which I had mentioned on the slides earlier, and it can work for that very limited use case of monetary accounting and possibly, to some extent, substituting the monetary transfers between people, companies, entities However, it is very limited use cases where full-fledged installations of blockchain now make sense to run without databases. Let me, before we go to next one, let me mention this workaround of databases. Even includes the part where users using blockchain-enhanced solutions like ours, like the LuxTag solution, and please later you can read more about LuxTag, users, they cannot be trusted to maintain their private access keys, right? Their digital signing keys by themselves securely without somebody looking after them. And this means looking after them, the keys, and the people using it. Because we have people forgetting their keys, losing their keys. And now you imagine if somebody had a piece of land owned and secured with blockchain technology, they hold their own private keys. And the one who has that private key and the right to digitally sign for the land and the right to transfer the land, that person is the owner. Now he lost his key. Imagine he loses his USB pen drive, lost his key. Just a stupidity. What happens? Is he now not the owner anymore? Can he now never transfer this land anymore? Do there need to be any rules? If you lose, then you can recover in such and such a way. Well, one way is to implement a database with a user ID and a password, secure it nicely, and save the private keys of the people in the database. What do we introduce here? A workaround which is a new point of failure. So that is another complication which is at this moment being used in the industry to marry both of these worlds together, of the traditional world of forgotten passwords, of central responsibilities, together with the blockchain technology, which brings limited added value benefits. And some of these benefits may be towards easier and more trusted auditing or for value transfers. There is benefits, but today I mainly wanted to talk about these complications and these points. So let me just check through my speaking notes whether there's anything I would want to mention in addition to this. I think we can go to the next slide. Okay, yes. In closing, I would like to mention like a shout out that it's very important not to think only about the technology, but to consider the established world order and business order, society, so that we can create value for businesses, for people, for the society, and in the end, even for the planet, and not become the masters of one without understanding the whole picture. So that is so far my sharing session, and I would like to open for questions, so we use the last 5 minutes for that. Thank you for your attention.
Sir, I have a question. So, is it possible that we can just get rid of passwords in the first place? Can we use just because these workarounds exist because people forget passwords. So, can we just get rid of these passwords in the first place and have a better method of authentication to avoid workarounds?
Can we get rid of passwords? Well, yes, you can use biometric identifiers. However, we come to another new complication, which is possibly relevant. You know, if you used biometric logins for everything, and possibly even some way of biometric digital signing to access blockchain secured data, if you wanted to do that without an instance in the middle, right, without a failure point in the middle, maybe we could find some way to do so with some algorithms, but then the problem is that your biometric data is something what is not secure enough in most cases. You know, somebody takes your fingerprint while you are asleep, or somebody forces you to give a fingerprint. You know, the easiest attack actually is the $5 cost wrench attack. You use a wrench. It's a tool. You go to the DIY shop and you threaten to hit somebody if he doesn't give his finger. If that was the login, it's not that not that secure, not secure enough. Another point is even that, for example, investigations, law enforcement, they have the right to your biometrics in most countries of the world, whereby they don't have the right to your knowledge. If you know an access, you know a password, to force you to say something is, I think, in most countries is not the case, because you always have a right to remain silent, from movies and anywhere. But the right not to give your fingerprint, I think you wouldn't have in very few countries only. So a way around passwords, there's many things, two-factor authentications, which again run through some central bodies. It is a problem which I don't have the solution to, and I'm skeptic towards. So I learned to live in the systems we have right now, which is a hybrid of these new capable technologies and the existing ones. We have now a world of user logins, usually being email addresses, and when people forget their passwords, they want to click forward password and get a new password to their email. And their email hopefully is secured with two-factor authentication. So that is at the moment, rather standard of authentication. But I don't have a solution for the world to go passwordless.
Okay, so we have a question from the YouTube live stream from Lavish Garg. He asks how to secure blockchain from 51% attack and what consensus algorithm to follow to have our DApps more secure.
Okay, so rather technical question. I think last year I went a bit into this technical part. Today I didn't want to dive into that. So I only touched the surface because that is a very lengthy topic otherwise. So whoever controls majority of this network of nodes in sync, whoever controls majority dictates the truth. So now the viewer asked how to protect the network from 51% attacks. The solution for this is to have more than 51%. I would dare to say that a solution that the majority of servers dictates this truth, and then still it is the wrong truth, is a very hard solution to prevent. Anyhow, there are certain attempts which I am not the expert to explain the technical details now. I think I would refer to do other online self-studies regarding the multiple attack vectors. This 51% attack. At this moment, how we are solving this now in my business is to make sure that the majority of the network is in the hands of the trusted parties or unknown parties who are incentivized not to run malicious versions. That is something where actually the big blockchain networks, Ethereum and Bitcoin, are front runners in incentivizing the participants to stay truthful, because who opts to be not truthful actually loses out on in an economic way. But again, it concludes to the maybe silly answer: make sure that you don't give away more than 51% of the chain and regulate that. And what consensus algorithms are more secure? Again, for the consensus algorithms, I would refer. I can show a table and talk about different algorithms, but it's like not that I have the ultimate answer to which is the best algorithm. I think that what the majority of the networks gravitate to is the ones to follow. And when you compare the largest projects, I think even the Bitcoin networks and the Ethereum networks are very well trusted in this sense, and I would recommend to follow this direction.
Well, thank you so much, sir. Now, I'd like to ask Dr. Mohit, sir, to please say a few words.
I cannot hear yet.
I think we have a technical glitch with him. So, thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful session, and also for joining us today. We're very grateful.
My
Our next,
pleasure.
thank you, sir. Our next speaker is the Associate Professor in the Computer Science and Information Systems Department at BITS Pilani, Dr. Vinti Agarwal. Ma'am, we welcome you. Her topic of discussion for today is cyber threat intelligence using machine learning. I request you, ma'am, to please take over for your session.
Hello, thank you, Supriya. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. So, good evening, all. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Shishir and the entire team to organize the event and effort to bring us all together at a place where we can share our knowledge and experience, as well as we can learn from each other experience. So now, okay, so I am now going to share my screen. Okay, so guys, can you see my screen now?
Yes, ma'am, it's very visible.
Okay, all right. So today the topic of my talk is cyber threat intelligence using machine learning. First of all, yeah, Supriya has already given my introduction, but just a little bit more. So presently, I'm assistant professor at BITS Pelani. Recently, I joined this institute, and before this, I completed my doctorate from JNU New Delhi in machine learning and graph analysis. Thereafter, I was a postdoctoral researcher for 2 years in Norwegian University of Science and Technology. I was working with digital forensic research group there. So, as you all know, that Norway is the world most digitalized country, and being highly digitalized, they are investing actually a lot of money in research and development, making their internet infrastructure secure and less accessible to the criminals. So what I observed there, that government, political institution, and institution, all are working in very close cooperation. And the NTNU, with the help of Digital Forensic Research Group, offers a very special course to experience-based master course to the police official to educate them so that they can utilize their experience and skills in fighting cybercrime in the best possible way. So when yesterday I was listening to Mathili sir, he was stressing upon the conducting research that can be transformed or applicable to solve a problem of real environment. Then I realized that yes, and this reminds me the actually famous quote that practice theory without practice is nothing, and practice without theory is nothing. So, what I want to say is that I'm also a strong follower of this practice where we can use our research in a real domain or real environment. So, I will be very happy to collaborate to with different organization to produce research which can actually create a difference in our society. So that was it, and I just give a list of projects where I am involved. So these are three projects. So the top two projects actually have been completed now. And the third one is about digital forensic knowledge integration and intelligence. It's a collaboration between NTNU and IIT Indore. I started this project when I was in NTNU, and this project is still going on. So these are about me. Now coming to my topic, which is cyber threat intelligence. And how we can use machine learning to gather and extract cyber threat intelligence. So, if we see in current scenario, uh, where entire world has turned online, rate of crime is also growing at a faster rate. So, at one hand, cyberspace provides us opportunity to run our business smoothly. At the same time, it also gives criminal multiple ways to perform illegal activities. So if we see that if we list any domain including banking, e-learning, health, government agency, criminal has entered in everywhere. So these are some recent um, crimes which are committed by cyber criminals. So we can see that the cyber criminal has entered into a place where we cannot even expect. So for example, recently there was a face mask and hand sanitizer scam where cyber criminal actually create a fake website and they were selling face mask and hand sanitizer. And when a company from I don't know the exact name, I think from France or somewhere else, when they ordered these masks and hand sanitizer, they were not delivered, and after that the company was also not reachable. So so these are some examples. And the cybercrime, the structure of cybercrime has also evolved in past 20 years. So initially we see that crime used to happen in form of a virus, injecting virus in our system, and now they have taken the form of advanced persistent threats which can stay like for, I mean, for years or for many months in an organization without noticing them, and can create a big damage to them. So now I want to ask audience, like, can they explain what do they understand by cyber threat intelligence? Anyone would like to answer this question? Okay, so cyber threat intelligence is actually an information feed that can enable cyber defender to make faster and more informed security decisions. And it can also bring change in their behavior from reactive to proactive. So I would not say that changing in behavior from reactive to proactive will secure an organization entirely. But yes, it can reduce at least the amount of damage a crime or a cyber threat can bring to an organization. So now, if we say information feed, what do we understand by this? This information feed either in form of IP addresses. What are the malicious IP addresses? Domain name, file hashes. So if we see that this is the threat intelligence, I would explain that no, this is not the threat intelligence, because many industries these days are focusing on these type of feeds because they are easy to read by machines and easily available, but they are also easy for attacker to change. So I will give an example how these information these indicator of compromise are not enough intelligence information for an organization. So let's take an example. So in back, like in 2001, there was an attack in parliament, and if we see, if we just look at the attack, we see these equipments or this equipments were used for the attack. For example, the ambassador card were used by terrorists to enter into the parliament. Can prevent any future attack. Do you think that they would be using the similar kind of equipments or the way to perform attack in future? Do you think? Think these IOC, we will call it as indicator of compromise. So these IOCs are not enough because we need something more, right? And what is that more is intent, motivation, and we need to see that the attack was the attack state sponsored. What was the motivation of the attacker? Why he did that, and how he did that? So such kind of questions, if we can answer these questions, maybe it would give our cyber investigator or security specialist more information to be better prepared to fight with cyber threats. So what is that intent? So here, these are the questions which we can answer through cyber threat intelligence, like the what drives adversary to perform certain behavior. I mean, what was the motivation, and which techniques, tactics, and procedure he was using, which vulnerability he was exploiting in the network or in an organization to create damage. So these are the questions which we would like to answer with the help of cyber threat intelligence. But before going into that, I would explain the different level of intelligence. So as you see here in the pyramid, there are three level of intelligence: tactical, operational, and strategical. So tactical intelligence is at the bottom of the pyramid. So this tactical intelligence is the immediate future, tells you the immediate future, like the IOC. For example, what was the malicious IP address was used, malicious domain names were used to attack. So this tactical intelligence is concerned with the immediate future. Whereas operational intelligence answers the different questions: who was the attacker, why he did that, and how he did that. So the intent, motivation, and the TTPs, like technique, tools, and procedures, these questions will be answered under operational intelligence. And the final one is the strategic intelligence, where it describes how global or foreign policies um, or some local and international movement affect the cybersecurity of an organization. So these are the three level of cyber threat intelligence, and the indicator of compromise comes at the bottom, and then cybersecurity of an organization. So these are the three level of cyber threat intelligence, and the indicator of compromise comes at the bottom, and then come the operational intelligence. So we would be focusing further on operational intelligence. So what are the sources where from where we can get this kind of intelligence, operational intelligence? So as you know, as you might be knowing, that there are some security report published by many security companies, for example, FireHat, Black Hat, Symantec, where they publish the entire detailed report, how the attack, um, their attack happened and how it happened and which technologies, tools, procedures it was using to execute the attack. So these are few sources. Other sources, so for example, if we have these reports, so if you look through the reports, we can get this kind of information. For example, App 28, it's a advanced persistent threats, and it was using data obfuscation techniques, connection proxy technique to enter into the network. Similarly, App 29, PowerShell and scripting tools and technology it was using. So these kind of information we can find in these reports. Other source for cyber threat intelligence could be social media, for example, Twitter, Reddit, and many others. And the last one could be dark web forum. So these are few sources which I have listed here. There might be many more. But what is the problem? I mean, where is the problem? Because we know that where are the sources and we know what we have to get. So the problem is actually these sources contain quite a rich information about cyber threat. But if a cyber analyst has to go through all these sources, it will be a lot of manual work. So because this data is not in form of machine readable format, it is in textual format. So it will be very hard. I mean, it's impossible for machine to directly feed the machine learning algorithm or maybe simple algorithm to directly feed with this data. So we need to process this data in some format. So also, for example, if we talk about Twitter, the data which is available on Twitter might be relevant or irrelevant to a cyber attack. So we need some mechanism which can filter out some irrelevant data from the relevant ones. And other thing, yes, it's in unstructured format. So we need to bring it in some format which machine can easily consume. So there comes machine learning. So machine learning, we have some natural language processing model which can process a large amount of textual data, efficiently, and can make it available for better decision. So here I'm going to share with my recent research findings. This is a master thesis work of my one student at NTNU. She recently published this work. This is about gathering open source threat intelligence from Twitter, where we were using a combination of supervised and unsupervised learning approaches. So here you see we try to investigate these questions during this research work. For example, first question was how relevant are the tweets in cyber threat intelligence? The second thing, we were using a popular natural language processing model, BERT, which is proposed by Google in 2018, to process textual data for classification purposes. So we use this model for binary and multi-class classification, and then we were using unsupervised algorithm, for example LDA, to group further tweets to gain threat-specific knowledge. So we will see how we proceed, how we utilize these algorithms to gain threat-specific knowledge, and the finally data enrichment was done in the existing threat intelligence platform. So these are the pipeline structure of our model. So in the stage one, we were actually using some free Twitter API to collect the data. So we started collecting data from January 21 and until April 1. So around 76,000 tweets were collected during this duration. Then our idea was, since these tweets were containing, we observed that tweets were containing some irrelevant cyber threats and related tweets. So we try to filter them out using binary classification. And then once we were ready with the relevant data, we use multi-class classification, because in threat data you can have tweets related to multiple stuff. For example, some are talking about malware, some are talking about attacks kind of like maybe in an oil company or in automobile industries, and some are just giving information, and some are miscellaneous. So then we plan to put those tweets into multiple classes, and for that purpose we use sequence classifier B, and for binary we were using sequence classifier L. So both are version of BERT model. And then in the third stage, we were using unsupervised approach, which is LDA modeling, to group our data from each class. Because each class, for example, we have malware class. In malware class also, we can have multiple kind of malware. Some are ransomwares, right? And so that is why we use grouping mechanism to further group our data. And then we were able to obtain some specific threat specific information which were used for enrichment. So we will go step by step. So here you see some example I have put here, the tweets which are relevant and which are irrelevant. So for example, the tweet protect yourself from a cyber attack. So this is not at all related to not at all relevant for a threat analyst. So we categorize it as irrelevant. And similarly, the first two tweet, one is talking about ransomware and the second one is talking about a vulnerability, which we categorize as relevant. So after doing this exercise, we were almost able to get 50% data as relevant and remaining 50% as irrelevant. Then in the next step, we created 5 classes: info, attack, vulnerability, malware, and miscellaneous. And then we trained our classifier for these 5 classes. So, and some examples I have shown here. So, for example, the first tweet, which is talking about a malware, ransomware, which goes into a malware class. And the second one is talking about a vulnerability, so it's going into a vulnerability class. And the last one, if you see, so it is talking about the target, right? So Durham real estate market is at halt after malware attack shut down county system. So here we see that this tweet is giving us information who is the target of an attack. So that's why we put it in attack category. Then here I have put the performance of our classifier. So we actually run our test on multiple classifier, and we see that sequence classifier L, which is a version of BERT model, perform best. for binary classification, and these are the performance for multi-class classifier. So here we see the CNN and sequence classifier B, where the second one performs the best. So, and then finally, in the third stage, we were using unsupervised mechanism to group the tweets which are falling into each class. So let's say we have malware class, and I have 1,000 tweets falling into this class. So I used topic modeling, and then I tried to find out which are the most frequent topics under this class. So if you see here, I have listed 4 topics, and within each topic, I have listed few top words. So and after this, when we see, so here you can see doppelpaymer and COVID lock, cookie thief, emoted. So these are the words which are appearing in topics under malware class. When we try to see the tweets which were related to these words, so let's say, for example, COVID log, we perform a case study on this word. So the tweets which were falling in that particular topic are like this. So here you see that we are able to reach up to at least a certain extent, and we can get information about this COVID log malware. So these are the tweets related to COVID log, and the summary from these tweets is that the thumb appeared in the Twitter data on March 14, and this COVID log is a ransomware which is targeting Android system, and the ransom demanded from this malware is in form of Bitcoin, and this malware is attached with tracking app. It locks the phone down, and then when your phone is locked, then you can use a decryption key. So right, so we were able to get this information from using our topic modeling approach, but we see that this information is not very sufficient. So what we did, we tried to do historical search on Twitter using this keyword. So when we did the historical search using this keyword between 10 to 23 March, we discovered these tweets. So if I summarize the information from these tweets, so here we see that it demands $100 in Bitcoin within 48 hours, change screen lock password, and it not actually encrypt, decrypt any file, just lock the phone. And if your device have a password, it can prevent from this attack. So this were the additional information we gained after doing historical search. So this was a case study. So here you can see that how, with the help of these machine learning models, we were able to get very specific information related to a particular attack. So similarly, we can practice this exercise for other top keywords. So this was just a case study. And so the conclusion from this research is that yes, many posts on the Twitter contain relevant threat related information. And if we perform targeted search, can give us more threat specific information. But there are some limitation also of our proposed model. It is not able to predict 0-day attacks. And also the data we used to train our model was not sufficient. Um, though it uh, because the number of relevant, because we were just randomly putting keywords to gather data from Twitter. So that was the major problem, because when we put some random keywords, it was collecting some irrelevant information also. So the data which left for training was very less. So these were the problems in our model, and we try to address these in our future work. So our next step for this work will be, we want to design an open source tool. So that tool can be used not only by a threat analyst, but also by a police investigator. For example, if they are investigating a high profile case, so they might be knowing some detailed information, right? So we can use that domain expertise, and when using this tool, can give them more specific threat related information. Also in this work, we were just focusing on English tweets, but maybe in future we would like to include multilingual tweets also. And the last thing, and the third thing is ranking model. So our plan is to build a ranking model so it can rank the clusters or topic based on their popularity and their importance, where investigators should look at. So, and the next thing is entity relationship extraction. So here you see that we were manually, I mean, looking at the tweets and trying to summarize the information. But in future, we can try to use some NLP models where entity and relationship can also be extracted from a sentence. And the other thing is, we noticed that mostly the tweet which were appearing in our data coming from security researcher perspective, we were not able to reach to the criminal tweets. So that was a drawback. So I think for that purpose, we have to look other side of web also, which is dark web. So not only open source mining can give us uh, the better information, but if we include both dark web and and open source mining, that can give us the better results. So these are our future plans, and yes. So this was from my side. If you have any question, please ask. So audience, any question? Okay. All right. So, if you want to ask any question, maybe later on, this is my email. You can reach out to me at this. And I have something for students. So, recently, I'm working on two projects. These the first one is designing a tool for open source threat intelligence, and the other one is deep net on dark web. So, if you any of you is interested to work on any of these topic, you can reach out to me at my email, and then I can share more information about these projects. So now I will stop sharing my screen, and
Hello,
thank
Professor.
you for your time. Yeah.
Uh, Hello.
Hello. Yes, Saket.
Yeah, I had one question regarding threat intelligence, as I am also like now trying to work in it. So, like you talked about Twitter as one source of the intelligence. Like,
Hmm.
we would like to know what other sources are there, and apart from this threat intelligence from social media,
Hmm.
do we have dedicated websites or forums which like update regularly about these malwares? Like IBM releases some things under the X Force, but it is not like that rapid. They release weekly or monthly reports. So,
Hmm.
is there something which works real time?
Okay, so Saket, yeah, if I correctly understood your question, you would like to ask me, I mean, about the sources from where we can get this information feed and we can process, right? So, yeah, so I will share my experience with you. When I was in Norway, I was working with a company, Mnemonic. They were working on this kind of stuff. So, actually, the sources from where they were collecting this threat intelligence were many. For example, um, because from one particular place you cannot get everything, right? So you have to look at multiple places. So some of them were like security reports published by many companies. So yes, they are not publishing very frequently. They are publishing maybe in 15 days or maybe in a month. So that is one source you can use, right, for feeding threat intelligence into an organization. Other could be antivirus reports, right? So in antivirus reports, they publish, sometime they made those reports publicly available, or sometime you have to pay money for that. So that is another source. Third thing, yes, if you want some rapid collection of information, the only way I think is social media. So for example, Twitter and maybe other forum, for example, Reddit is also available, where criminals share most of the threat information. And yes, the lastly is the dark web. But accessing dark web is not that easy because it is encrypted actually behind. You cannot directly access using your browser. You need some encrypted browser, Tor, and something like this. So this is, I think, that much information I know about the intelligence from where you can gather um, sources or something like this.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. I would like to hand over to Ayushi for like rest of the event.
Well, thank you so much, ma'am, for your presentation. With this, we end with all the technical sessions we had for you and further proceed to the closing ceremony of CyVIT.
The cybersecurity students of VIT Bhopal have always been a step ahead to spread knowledge, awareness, and information and in as many ways possible. Last year, we saw the release of the first edition of the annual cybersecurity magazine, Cyberzine.
The more technology we develop, the more flaws we seem to find in them. Sometimes a common misconfiguration can be a huge attack vector. To guard against these attacks, we have to be more careful and more informative about cybersecurity when we are on the network. This magazine aims to inform the civil society about the dangers that we are facing and educate them on how to circumvent the same. We have done our best to put together some of the burning security issues into this magazine and explain them in a very lucid and descriptive manner. Cyberzine also contains independent researchers of some of our very bright cybersecurity enthusiasts who continue to push the boundaries even further. Bored of if you're bored of reading all that hard stuff, it has got games too. Try the new cryptography challenge and get your gray matter on the move. In all, we assure you that that this magazine is going to get you interested in information security and at the same time make you aware of the dangers we are facing right now. We present to you a little sneak peek of Cyberzine 2020. And now for the most awaited moment, we announce this magazine released and we hope reaches all of our shelves shining with pride. We will be emailing the copies soon. I now request Dr. Praveen Lalwani to kindly deliver the vote of thanks.
Due to some technical glitch, I guess Praveen sir will not be joining us. Uh, I hand over to Dr. Shishir Kumar Shandelia, the Division Head of Cybersecurity, to kindly present a formal thanks for CyVIT.
Thank you, Ayushi. It's been great pleasure for me to propose vote of thanks. So, formally, first of all, on behalf of VIT Bhopal University and Cybersecurity and Digital Forensic Division, I thank all the guests, all the speakers of CyVIT, those who came from industry as well as academia and spent time with us and actually focused about more technical recent researches on cybersecurity and enlightening all the audience and participants so that they can steer their careers. My formal thanks to my organizing team of cybersecurity and digital forensic department, all the students, specifically Ayushi, Devesh, Saket, Spriha, Divyansh, and all the other faculty members of VIT Bhopal who have supported us. Without their efforts, without their support, this event was not possible. I'm very happy that this time we were having, more number of panel discussions. The number of lectures were more. Also, it was more fruitful than last year, and we set a new benchmark for CyVIT. Hopefully, we will be meeting again in CyVIT 2021 with more fun, more information, more discussion, and hopefully we'll be making CyVIT 2021 as an international event. With these hopes, may God bless you all. All the participants will be receiving the certificates very soon on your email ID. For any other information, for more collaboration, any collaborative project with the students, with the faculties of VIT Bhopal, please write to us and we will respond back. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you, Ayushi.
Thank you so much, sir. It saddens me that this conclave has come to an end now. It was such a great experience to have such intellectual experts, and not just from India but internationally too, to just hear their views about the booming topics related to cybersecurity. It definitely makes it once in a year appearance worthwhile. Once again, a big thank you to all the viewers. Without you, all of this would not have been possible. It just would have not served its purpose of creating awareness. This year, though it was online, but it all felt equally stimulating as a live physical session. A big kudos to Team CyVIT for working so hard, even though they exhausted their internet packs. They did put up such a great event. I also thank my co-host Priya Chaudhary, and finally the biggest thank you to our beloved division head Dr. Shishir Kumar Shandilya for his vision and ideas in helping us make this a reality. So I, Aisha Tripathi, sign off. Once again, thank you all. Good night. Stay home, stay safe, and hope to see you next year with the same level of zeal. Thank you so much.